You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that big CEO energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. My guest today is someone that I treasure so much. We were in this space called Cheer Camp with Laura Kelly, and I got to know a little bit of the behind the scenes and just who she is as a human and how she gets to show up every day. And I'm so thankful that she reached out to do a podcast episode, because it was an ultimate dream to just have a raw conversation about where she has been, where she is going, and how she has pivoted. Sylvana Gatto is a success coach. She helps organizations and high performers achieve success while putting their mental well-being at the forefront. And she really has a passion for mindfulness. Before her coaching business, she spent close to a decade of the corporate world. She has experienced firsthand the stress, deadlines, and targets that come with these highly demanding jobs that we have all been a part of. But over the last 10 years, she's learned a lot about organizations, people, and leadership, especially herself. The mental well-being is the missing puzzle piece at most organizations. And so she really helps to help you understand what that missing piece is and how you can reframe it and ultimately reframe success in your business. And so I am so excited for you all to tune into this conversation. Let's dive in. Welcome, Sylvana, to That Big CEO Energy. I am so very grateful that we are sharing this space, and I'm very excited to talk with you because, and we're going to get into it, you have made a few little shifts. And for those that are listening, all of these past episodes have been all about making a shift and doing scary things and jumping into the pond with both feet first. So, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm so great. Thank you for having me, Kelly. I'm so excited for this conversation to see where it leads us.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. So I want to kind of unpack a little bit and kind of come back to sort of the beginning. I know that you are a post-corporate gal as well. And so if you can uncover for us kind of what was your past life like? And I know recently you have made a shift. And so kind of walk us through that.
Amazing. I'm so excited to dive into this. So I did spend the first part of my career in the corporate world, in sales, in technology, and it served me well. It served me really well. I wouldn't change it for the world. And when I started my career 10 years ago, I had always been interested in entrepreneurship. It was always something that intrigued me. But at the time, there was nothing I was super passionate about that I could see myself building a business in. So I always say the way I fulfilled that side of me and that need was just by watching other entrepreneurs, by reading autobiographies, by listening to podcasts, and just filling that void with other people's stories. And that worked. And as a result, because I thought, okay, I'm just going to go down the traditional path. That's what I knew. That's what success was to me at the time. And so I remember listening to podcasts very early on and thinking, okay, one day I will be the CEO of some big company or senior level executive of some big company, and I'm going to do what I need to do to get there. And so I started, and I was really fortunate enough to start my career at a great company. It was a cybersecurity company. 10 years ago, cybersecurity was hot. It was the up and coming industry in tech. And I was the 50th employee of this company that was about to take off. And because of it, I got to learn and experience so much during my time there. And I always am grateful for starting in sales because I felt as a 22-year-old, I got access to a lot of information and I got access to the brains of a lot of our senior level executives at a time that maybe I wouldn't have if I was in any other role. So I was very grateful for that. And I had an incredible time there. And I got to really learn the ins and outs of what it took to grow a company in that like startup space. I got a view into what that looked like.
Sure.
And then I was ready to change roles. I was selling primarily over the phone and email, and I really wanted the next step to be the opportunity to sell in person. I was working remotely at the time. I wanted to be back in a physical office, surrounded by people. That was so important to me. So I went out and I was fortunate to be able to search for a job when I had a job. And so I could be a little bit picky and choosy on what was next. And a lot of my mentors were advising me to go to a big company. They told me, you have the startup experience. I watched the company go from 50 employees to 350 employees.
Wow.
And they said, now go and round out that experience by joining a Microsoft or an SAP or one of those big companies to round out your experience. So I went down that path looking and interviewing and exploring. And I actually ended up being introduced to the CEO of my past company, which was not a large company. It was actually a lot smaller. It was 8 people. And I got totally caught up in the energy and the charisma of the CEO. And I'll be honest, I didn't know exactly what they did. I knew they were a Microsoft partner, but I knew that I needed to be surrounded by this energy that this man gave off, and I wanted to be part of what he was creating. So I went against the advice that I was given, and I decided to join this company as their sales rep. And I remember very early on, like first month probably, sitting with the CEO and telling him, I want to be on the other side of the boardroom. I want to be in the boardroom, sitting around the table when big decisions are being made. I want to be part of the leadership team, and I want you to help me do that. And I was so lucky that he is such a phenomenal leader and still a mentor today. And he agreed and said, yeah, let's do that together. Let's work towards that together. And so we worked and sold together and grew the company in so many different ways with the other people. And when the pandemic started, he was leading the sales team and it had grown. And he came to me and said, listen, now is your time. He's like, I have to step into full CEO mode. It's March 2020. We didn't know what was going to be the future. I'm sending you in. And it was such a big moment for me because that's what I had been working towards for so long, right? When I said at 22 years old that I wanted to be a senior level executive at a big company, this was one step closer. But I'll be honest, it didn't feel the way that I thought it would feel. I thought I was going to feel this sense of accomplishment, the sense of fulfillment that didn't really take place. And so it really sent me into thinking of why. Why is this something that I've been working towards for so long? And now that I've got here, now that I've arrived, doesn't really feel like the way I thought it would feel. And obviously, given this time, we were all sent back home to work in this virtual environment. I had stuff going on in my personal life as well. And it sent me down this path of reflection to really think about, what is it that I actually want to do? What is my path? And what is going to make me feel fulfilled if this is not what it is? And that was a hard path. That was a hard time to sit and reflect and be faced with questions and no answers, all while taking on this new role and figuring out what it is to be a leader and to have a team and everything that comes with that. And there was so many parts of that new role that I did love. I loved the people part. I had a team of young sales reps that I got to lead and I got to coach and I got to cheer on and watch them succeed and help them with the challenges that they faced in their roles. And I loved that part. But what I realized very early on was that I didn't like the content. I didn't love the content of what I was doing. And I knew that I was one of those people that needed to wake up every day and love what they did. And it was no longer the amount of money, the title, the status that I had was great and it looked good on paper, but it didn't satisfy me. I needed something more. I needed something bigger. And it was up to me to find out what that was. So then I went to a meditation retreat that summer. And I had an amazing experience. And you never know what is going to come out of those type of retreats. But when I came home, I reflected on a couple of the workshops that we did. And it came to me that I needed to start my own brand. I needed a platform that I could start sharing about a lot of stuff that I had been learning over the years. And in the meantime, I had been trained as a meditation teacher. And I was doing a lot of my own personal development work. And I was starting to recognize the gap that existed in the corporate world, that too many people were experiencing stress and it was taking over, that too many people were chasing this traditional definition of success and they weren't feeling fulfilled, or they were getting to the top, whatever the top looked like. And just like me, they were looking around feeling like, is this it? Is this what I had my head down for, grinding just for this? And I wanted to share. And so I started this brand. At the time, it was called Be Wellness. And I had no intention of turning it into a full-time business, but I hired my own coach. And I recognized that I had a lot of my own mindset blocks that I needed to work through in order to expand and build this brand into what it was becoming. And as time passed, I got to a point where I thought, this is it. This is my path. I'm being led to the place where I need to be. And if I don't jump now, what if I never do? And so it was September 2021 when I made the decision that I was going to step away from my director of sales role and go all in on my business. And so 6 months later, I gave my notice. I walked away from the top of my career into the unknown, but it felt so right. And so for a year, I have been building the foundation of what that business would look like and who it would serve. And it's just been an incredible year, and I'm sure we'll dive into that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yes. When you were growing up, what is your family dynamics like? Do you have, so how I grew up was you go to school, you go to college, you get a 9-to-5 job, you work your Monday through Friday, you work 35 years and you get a pension, and that's life. Is that how your family dynamics are? Or do you have a mix? Are there entrepreneurs?
Such a good question. So my grandparents on my dad's side came from Italy, when they were very young. So I have that immigrant part of my background, which I think really plays into who we are and who we become. Mm-hmm. And both of them were entrepreneurs. Mm. And my parents fluctuated between entrepreneurship and jobs. And their focus was always on family. Mm. The core value amongst both my parents and my grandparents was family first, and career was a means of making money in order to support the family.
Sure.
And so I think what was instilled in me very early on was that idea that success came when you checked those boxes, similar to what you were talking about of going to university. None of my immediate family had gone to university yet. Mm-hmm. I would be the first one. My brother and I would be the first ones. So that was a non-negotiable. Really, it was, this needs to happen. This is what you do. This is what is going to open up doors for you in the future. Mm-hmm. So I downloaded that definition of success very young and took it extremely seriously. And I went through checking those boxes of, making sure that I got the good grades, making sure that I got into the school and the program that was going to open those doors for me later on. If we're talking personal life of like getting married and buying the house and making the 6 figures as early as possible and all of those things. So I think that was instilled into me young, not explicitly, but almost just based upon the history that my grandparents and my parents had. It was almost an expectation.
Yeah. And then, as you talked about it, it sort of set you up for the boxes that you would check when you arrived in corporate. It's like, this is the definition of success. Okay, so this is what's going to make me happy. Check. Okay, so the next stepping stone is I'm in leadership. Okay, so that's the next, you're kind of frog hopping. That's what I call it. You're leap padding to where though, right? It's this evolution of, and it's funny because I think we both have the same lens of when we're looking back, we go, oh, and that is the moment where I should have gotten off the leap pad and went into the wilderness to find something else, right? But I think it's interesting that this evolution of you working through moving from, this is how I grew up. These are sort of the things that were instilled. I recognize that they are not things that were explicitly told to me, but they just became ingrained in who I was. So then when we're chasing the corporate ladder, those things just naturally fall into line. And one of the things that you mentioned was as you started to think about coming down from the retreat and understanding that you had sort of these mind blocks that were showing up and you knew you had to deal with those. What were those? What came up for you?
That's a good question. So what I realized was I had been portraying this life of perfection for a long time. And I was very good at curating this life from the outside, that everything looked great. Everything was perfect. As a kid, I was the best kid that everyone else's parents, praised my parents for. I was like the teacher's pet of the school. I was always getting the pats on the back and the acknowledgments, which is fantastic. And it builds self-esteem and it builds self-confidence, but it also builds this expectation to maintain perfection. And I don't think I recognized that until I was faced with stepping outside of my comfort zone in a way that I had never stepped outside of my comfort zone before. And I was going to start this business. I was going to start this brand. And I didn't know what I needed to do. And I didn't even know the message that I wanted to share. I just knew I had a message to share. And so the thought of stepping out into the unknown and maybe presenting myself in a way that would come across as messy or that would surprise people that have known me for all of my life, that was hard. The hardest part at the beginning was introducing this new side of me that I was just starting to explore to the people that I knew the best.
What was their response?
They were so supportive. And I'm so fortunate for that. And I wouldn't expect anything less. I've been surrounded by love and support for my whole life, but it doesn't mean that it's not scary.
So fear was driving your bus.
Of course. I think it is so often when we make the decision to do things differently, especially when we're not forced to. When things are going well, why? Why shake things up? Things are going well. Just keep going. Keep riding that wave, right? And I think it's such a hard point in time to transition when things are going well.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Life is great. Why would I ruffle those feathers?
Exactly.
I mean, what are they going to think about that?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting question that we tend to ask ourselves is, what are other people going to think? And so as you're kind of building and stepping into Be Wellness and the response is everything that you thought it wasn't going to be.
Yeah.
So was Be Wellness going really well for you?
So Be Wellness at the time represented what could be, where I could be pouring my energy in. So I want to say it was going well because it was opening up all these doors that I didn't even know was possible. But if I wanted to say it was going well from a financial perspective, the answer is no. And the goal was never at the time to make it a financial endeavor. I had a corporate job. I was making more money than I ever thought I would be making at that age. That wasn't the goal. But I quickly realized that it was opening these doors to these things that I didn't even know were out there. These people, these networks and groups and communities of people that I wouldn't have had access to, that I wouldn't have even known existed if it wasn't for this brand. So in that sense, it was going so well. It was introducing me to my future, to a glimpse into what my path could look like if I decided to make that shift.
I love that you tied Be Wellness to happiness, not to a financial tip. I think sometimes when we think that we're going to start a business, we have high hopes that it's going to take off and become six figures. I mean, both of us, we know and love Laura Kelly, and she will tell the Groupon story until she is dead in the face, but like not every business takes off like that. And so I love that when you are in a good financial place and you're doing something that is so holistically tied to you, from a personal perspective, I love that it is from the aspect of growth and happiness and not just what is this dollar going to bring me?
I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity to create it from that place because I just wasn't desperate to make money. And I think when you're desperate to make money and everyone's in different situations and start businesses at different times for different reasons, and I respect all of those reasons. But because that was not the main priority, I was able to create it in a way that felt aligned and that I wasn't going to take everything that I had learned and all the beliefs and the lessons that I had from the corporate world on how to succeed and just copy and paste them into this. I got to reimagine what success was going to look like and got to build this business in a way that felt aligned as opposed to a way that needed to produce from a numbers perspective as fast as possible.
Yeah. What are some of the things that as you started to shift your mind and the way that it was showing up in your business, what are some of the things that you knew you had to get rid of in order to propel yourself forward to be your definition of success in your business?
So there was a fear of judgment as well at the beginning that I needed to let go of. I was afraid that all of these people that were watching my career and watching me progress were going to shake their head and wonder, like, what are you doing? What do you mean you're going to step away from your corporate role to start this business that, I mean, at the time, I think I'd made $1,000. There was no success, quote unquote, there from a financial perspective at all. And I was considered the responsible one. I was considered the one that had their head on their shoulders at all times. And so there was this fear of, what are people going to think? What are these people that have put their trust in me for all of these years going to think? And I'm so lucky that I had Laura Kelly as my coach to help me through those mindset blocks, because people get over themselves really fast. They hear news, they might have a reaction, they might share something or not share something about it, and then they're on to the next thing. And you're left with the decisions that you have made. And so that's why, to me, it's so important. And when I work with my clients now, it's so important that we're making decisions for ourselves. And we're making decisions that are in alignment with our own values, because at the end of the day, we think people care about us more than they actually do. And that's not a negative thing. People are focused on their own decisions. They're focused on their own insecurities and the things that are holding them back. So we should not allow their potential thoughts, because oftentimes they're not even real, to hold us back from what we truly desire and what we know is right for us.
It's like that old age saying that says someone else's opinion is none of my business. Because frankly, it really isn't. It honestly isn't. So what has Be Wellness pivoted into? This is the juice and the meat of what I want to get into, because I have seen, first of all, any of those that are not following you, I don't understand what they're doing in their life. That's a topic for a whole other day, because your content is amazing. And I know that when I show up there, it's from a place of I'm being held and I'm being loved on. So first, thank you for that, because I think that those are spaces that when I'm surfing the internet, genuine people that are pouring their heart into their business, you can tell. And so Be Wellness has sunsetted, as we will say, and we have now arisen to what?
So first off, I appreciate that so much. Thank you for sharing those words, because authenticity is so important to me, and it is who I am. And it's nice to know that that also gets across in social media, because it can get lost in the nuance of social media sometimes. So I appreciate that. And I am so excited because just last week, I actually rebranded Be Wellness into Sylvana Gatto Coaching, which I am so excited for, and was the next step in the evolution of this business and just feels right. And so it's not a new business. It's just the evolution of what is there. It's just a new chapter. And I feel that you can't outgrow your name. So I am giving myself this space to continue to grow and continue to evolve without feeling that I'm going to be held back by the containers or the labels that I'm putting on myself.
That's very interesting. That just it just sparked something in me of living in the containers that we give ourselves. I think of so many other businesses that have a different name that are the person behind it. Wow, you really did something there. That's powerful. So what is Sylvana Gatto Coaching doing that is different from Be Wellness, other than stepping into the whole name and the whole being? Is there anything different that's coming to the front for that?
So it's nothing different. It's more aligned. I really attached myself to this concept of mindfulness and meditation when I first started. And the reason why I did that was because at the time when I was in the world of being trained as a meditation and mindfulness teacher, I recognized the gap that existed in the corporate world and the need for more mindfulness in the corporate world in order to continue to grow and succeed in our roles and in our companies. And so I felt at the time that that was my best transition out of corporate, was to bring what I knew and what I had experienced and what I knew worked and was needed back into the world that I was so familiar with. And it served me well. And I made impact in these companies, and I got to spread this message that I so desperately wanted to spread. And as I evolved over the last 15 months, I recognized that mindfulness and meditation is a tool, but it's not something that I wanted to tie my entire identity to, or especially the identity of my business. And I felt that I was turning away potential clients or potential eyes on my business because of the name and because of the concept of meditation and mindfulness. And I still incorporate both of those into my coaching sessions when it makes sense. I start all of my coaching sessions with a breath work check-in just to ground in the present moment, because I really, really know the value and the importance of that. But I no longer use that as a marketing tool or a label, like I said, to showcase what the business is. So instead, I have in this rebrand, and I just completed a 5-month coaching certification program, which really helped me reflect on what this past 15 months and beyond has been, what my value is, what clients and people are attracted to me and the results that they're experiencing. And what I came out the other side with was being a success coach. And that was a hard label to own at the beginning for so many reasons, because success is one of those words that is so complex and can be brushed off in a second. But what I want to do, and I think it ties in nicely to the beginning part of our conversation, is work with high-performing people, whether they're corporate, professionals, or entrepreneurs, in redefining their definition of success. Whether they're feeling stuck, whether they're feeling unfulfilled in their careers, whether they're starting a business or building a business that they want to build in alignment with them and their values, we're going to work together to really take their big dreams, take their big aspirations, boil them down into something that's tangible, align their goals with their values, and then overcome the mindset blocks that come up along the way towards achieving whatever it is that they've set out for themselves.
I love that you're harnessing the word success and using it in a different modality that is more aligned with who people are and not what the dollar value is. And I feel like, I know for me, when we float around the word success, it oftentimes is, oh, look, they're very successful. And it's because they have a house, they have a car, they have, all of the things on credit card debt that we don't see. Let's be honest about it. But we don't really say to someone, are you happy? And so I think it's this mindset piece that you're talking about that I'm so glad that you're digging into with these folks, that it's when someone asks you, how's success going? Do you feel successful? It's not hearing the word success and going, this is matched against everything that I have in my life. It's hearing it as, I'm happy. And maybe we respond a little bit differently, right? It's definitely a piece that I'm trying to work in myself of when someone says, how's business? Is business successful? I try to respond with, I'm really happy in my business, because it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, why? I think it's interesting that society is so hung up on what we have and not who we are or what we're being, right? I'm interested to hear kind of what your take is. If I am showing up to you for the first time and I'm just feeling really, really scared on having to audibly say, I don't know what my next step is. What would you say to someone that doesn't know what they should be doing or what the next right step is because they've painted the picture like you have before, right? They have a really good life and they're like, well, I know I feel like I need to do something different, but I don't know what that is. What is your advice for them?
And that's so common. I think a lot of people, and it's happening younger and younger, that people are going through these check boxes and then they're getting to their early 30s, mid 30s, and they're getting to that point where they say, I've checked almost the last box and now I feel scared because what's next? I don't know a life that is not filled with chasing the next thing, going towards that next box. So in my sessions, we take a lot of time to dig deep. And we take a lot of time to understand what are the core values, like what is most important to you. And it's such a interesting space to be in because what I find is that the more quote unquote successful someone becomes, the less they feel like they can be vulnerable.
Say it again. Say it louder for the people in the back. So they have say it again.
So what I feel is that the more successful someone becomes, the harder it is for them to be vulnerable. They have built up this perception. It's what I talked about at the beginning when I was sharing my story of building this business, of people saw me in this certain way. And I had to uphold that. I felt this pressure of having to uphold that I had to continue going forward and to the right. Because that's what success is. It's forward and to the right. And so what I find in my sessions with the clients that I work with is sometimes it's the only space that they have to share vulnerably about what is going on in their head. And more importantly, what is going on in their heart. And when they do this and they allow themselves to dig deep and to explore and to vocalize what's working, what's not working, what their big dreams are, because guess what? When you're successful, people don't let you dream bigger. They tell you like, why? You're already successful. You have all the things. Why would you want more? And so when you have this space where you can vocalize and dream and share your biggest desires, that's when you can spark that magic within. And that's when you can make those decisions that it's time to change, or it's time to change your perception. Sometimes you stay exactly where you are physically, but it's your mindset around it that changes, and that can make all the difference.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Exactly.
I just love you. I just love you so much.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Right. It's interesting because I never thought in a million years that I would be surrounded around so many women that have found themselves in the same path, just in a different way, And I know that I mentioned this offline about, Diane Lamb, who is just, she thought same thing. I'm gonna climb the ladder and I'm gonna do all this stuff and things and I'm gonna check the boxes. And at the end of the day, you wake up one day and what is it all for? Because it's not your revenue that you're taking home. It's not your passion, really. I mean, it's not. We're showing up to collect a paycheck and pay for our passions on the side, but when you stop and think about your full transition and sort of you're fully immersed in your work right now, what does that feel like for you?
It feels fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
It feels fulfilling in a way that I've never experienced fulfillment before. And it feels like it was that gap that I felt that month that I got promoted to director of sales. And I said, something is missing. And that something was fulfillment. And I didn't know it at the time. And I didn't know it 6 months later. It's taken till now to be able to experience physically what fulfillment feels like, to know what I was missing and know what is important to me. And I was sitting, I'll share a story. I was sitting in the car a few weeks ago. It was a Thursday, and I just had such a good day. I started the morning doing a 9 a.m. yoga class, which I normally wouldn't be able to do when I was in a corporate job because I had to be in front of my computer. And then I came home for a 10:30 Q&A session in my coaching program. And I remember sitting in front of my computer, listening to the answers that were coming up in this session and literally shaking my head and saying, this is what professional development means for me now. This is what I get to do to learn. This is what I get to do to evolve and to grow. How is this real life? And then I moved from that meeting to my cohort meeting with my group. And I got to hear a bunch of people, the similar people that you were just talking about, that are very like-minded, that get it. They have a very different life. They have very different goals potentially or circumstances, but there's this like-mindedness that you just feel, and the energy exists. And I thought, this is who I get to spend my days with. These are now my peers. Mm-hmm. And then I had a coaching session later on that afternoon, and it brought up one of those experiences like I was sharing about. This man told me, I have never been able to talk to anyone about what we're talking about right now. And he broke down in tears. Mm-hmm. And on the drive home from that meeting, it was in person, I was buzzing with energy. I was on this high that I really had not experienced before. And if I had experienced, I had never taken time to slow down and recognize what it was. And it brought up this memory for me. And I just shared this on socials last week. But when I was 25 years old, I was in sales. And one month I got a commission check for $33,000. And I remember looking at that check, and in my head, I was excited. I had never seen that kind of money before in my life. But physically, it didn't register. I couldn't tap into this excitement that my brain was trying to tell me, this is exciting. And the next day I woke up, and it was almost just like I went back to work and everything was normal. And I had not thought of that memory in a long time. But as I sat in the car coming home from this meeting, feeling this sense of fulfillment that I had never felt before in my work life, I thought, this is success. This is what success feels like. I thought it was supposed to be that $33,000 commission check that's, I received at such a young age. That wasn't success. It was nice. It helped financially in certain ways, but it wasn't going to be what drove me forward. It wasn't going to be what brought out the best of me in my work and continued to propel me into what was next, into finding the things that made me tick, the things that felt in alignment. And that was an incredible moment to really physically feel what success felt like. Because so often we spend time in our heads and we tell ourselves what should feel good and what should not feel good, where we should go and where we shouldn't go, what's a good decision and what's not a good decision. But if we take that moment to step back and really listen to our bodies, it makes a difference. And we can really tune into what matters to us on a deeper level. And when we can follow that, that's when the magic happens.
That's worth more than any $33,000 sale.
I would say so.
Where can we find you across the internet?
So you can find me on Instagram at Sylvana Gatto Coaching. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sylvana Gatto, and you can find me at my website, sylvanagatto.com.
I love it. I love it. Anything we should be looking out for from you in the next weeks or months, or what is your current offering for folks who want to dive deeper?
So I am currently opening some spots for one-on-one clients starting in July. So if you are looking for a coach, or more importantly, if you're feeling that sense of stuckness, that sense of unfulfilledness in your career, you're working towards a big goal or working to overcome a challenge or an obstacle in your work life and looking for some support in that space, I would absolutely love to have a conversation with you, see if this could be a fit. I also do corporate workshops all around this space, work-life balance, different topics. So if you are a leader in your organization and you want to bring more of this content into your workplace, reach out. I'd be more than happy to chat.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I personally look forward to the growth from you as a person and seeing it shine all across your Instagram, because I know that is a genuine space of care. So for those of you that are just looking for a place where you can just be gentle and kind with yourselves and know that you are showing up into a space where you're being held, her space is that space for you. So we'll chat soon. Thank you.
Callie, I just wanted to say thank you to you as well for creating this space for people like me and others to come on and share our stories. Because like you said earlier in the conversation, there are so many people that are hitting this spot in their lives, and it can be lonely and it can feel isolating. And you're creating this space for people to come together and recognize that they're not alone, and they can find the sense of belonging in an online community that you have curated so nicely. So much gratitude for you creating this space.
Thank you. Yeah. And, like I said, my hope is that people will just find themselves and land in a soft place of grace and know that they are in a community of people that have walked the walk. And just because we present ourselves online with now, quote unquote, having it together, it still means that we're doing the mindset work. It still means that we're showing up for ourselves and being graceful with ourselves and giving ourselves the time and space that we need, because it's worth it. And my hope is that women will just feel empowered to step outside, to open the door just a little bit wider. And even though it looks a little bit messy on the other side, just go and start weeding through the mess. It's just a space where you can go and be. So thank you so much. And we look forward to connecting with you out in the interwebs.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.